of us have a love-hate.
So yeah, go for it.
No worries, I'll start over. But I'm so excited to be here to talk about a subject that many of us have a love-hate relationship with, storyboarding. Storyboarding is an exciting topic because I find that people either tend to really love storyboarding or people tend to really hate storyboarding. And I think that's because when done right, storyboarding can be extremely effective. However, when they are implemented ineffectively, they can be a colossal waste of time. But hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll all be storyboarding proponents. My hope is that you'll walk away with an understanding of why storyboard is a great tool, as well as some tangible strategies for how you can more effectively implement storyboarding processes within your organizations. When implemented effectively, storyboarding improves the cohesiveness of the proposal strategy and streamlines the proposal draft development. And this upfront planning process can definitely save you time in the end. So first, I'll cover a brief history of storyboards to provide an understanding of their roots and their original purposes. Then I'll touch on why we likely started storyboarding for proposals in the first place and talk about why storyboarding is such an important element of our proposal development process. I'll walk through some of the key elements and outcomes of a typical storyboard, and then highlight the main reasons why most storyboarding efforts are not successful. I'll conclude with some tips on how you can combat those common problems and implement an effective storyboarding process. You should walk away with tangible strategies for increasing storyboarding success. One question we might find ourselves asking is, where did this storyboarding thing originate anyway? Through research that I've conducted on storyboarding and its origins, I discovered that storyboarding in the form that we know it today was actually developed and honed at Walt Disney Productions during the early 1930s. Traditionally, a storyboard is a graphic organizer of illustrations or images displayed in sequence for pre-visualizing a motion picture or animation. The purpose of Disney's storyboard is to visualize the storytelling, focus the story and timing in key frames, and to find the story, the technical parameters of the story. Not surprisingly, because of their success, storyboards were adopted by the larger film and television industry, as well as by other industries, including business and marketing. So why do we storyboard for proposals? Because of the necessity for visual appeal, as well as the desire to present a cohesive story in our proposal responses, we adopted this storyboarding process into our industry standard best practices. Storyboards provide an organized framework in which to document thoughts, plans, and activities. Storyboards can be used to stimulate creative thinking, plan a project, collect ideas, explore an organization, communicate concepts, illustrate ideas, and understand the big picture. So why is storyboarding important? Storyboarding is essentially structured pre-writing, and the importance of pre-writing has been studied and established for many fields, including business. Business-related industry routinely uses techniques such as brainstorming, listing, and discussions to develop projects and departmental evaluations. Storyboarding increases efficiency by helping writers understand the task, brainstorm, and then plan their writing before beginning a first draft. Additionally, when formal storyboarding reviews are worked into the proposal process, it helps to gain stakeholder buy-in on the approach before any time is wasted writing the first draft. We might ask ourselves when it's best to work storyboarding into our proposal process. Ideally, storyboarding will occur before the RFP is released. This allows you to have all of the major solution elements defined and documented so that once the final RFP is released, all you have to do is adjust the outline and any other solution elements that may be affected by the changes between the draft and final RFP versions. This way, your team will be ready to hit the ground running and start writing once you have the final solicitation documents. However, if pre-RFP storyboarding hasn't occurred, for a typical 30-day turnaround, I still recommend dedicating 2 of the draft development days to storyboarding before the authors begin writing the first draft. This will help ensure that key solution elements make it into the draft from the start, which will ultimately save you time and effort in the end. Additionally, for quick turn proposals, or when you haven't storyboarded before the final RFP release, like we just discussed, I recommend including the major storyboard elements directly in the proposal section template or shell document. This will streamline the process of transferring the solution information to the section drafts. So how exactly do storyboards help with the proposal process? Storyboards help to brainstorm around key areas and solution elements. When brainstorming, writers simply throw ideas out in whichever order and form they come out. The idea behind this is that once the writers get everything out of their heads, they can more easily organize and structure those ideas. This helps authors to identify where there are gaps in the solution and where additional research may be necessary. Major outcomes of storyboard-related solutioning include analyzing the customer, considering the competition, considering your position, defining the section strategy, identifying section themes, outlining, researching, and adding key visuals. We'll discuss these outcomes in greater detail on the following slides. Storyboards help authors to understand the section assignment, including the number of pages allotted for the content. The top of the storyboards typically document key section information, including the volume number and name, the section number and name, the author, and any page limitations. Another key outcome of storyboarding is the section outline, which should be mapped to the key elements of the RFP, including instructions, evaluation criteria, performance work statement or statement of work, and other key sections as applicable. When outlining, I typically recommend 3 main steps. Step 1, organize sections according to the proposal instructions, unless otherwise specified by the RFP. Step 2, where evaluation criteria do not align cleanly to the instructions, add in additional headings. Step 3, next, add in any relevant SOW mapping and other RFP mapping as necessary. This is usually required in the technical sections of your response. To facilitate evaluation, follow the order of the RFP, even if the order does not make logical sense to you and your team. Use language very close to the RFP to make the compliance mapping easy for the evaluators. Consider including RFP section mapping in parentheses after each heading to further facilitate the evaluation. Or if responding to a question and answer RFP, include the entire question as the heading. The section outline and compliance checklist is critical because it helps guarantee that writers address every requirement in the RFP pertaining to their section. The proposal manager should provide a proposal outline and compliance matrix as part of the proposal management plan. Additionally, for best results, the proposal manager should ensure that the storyboards are pre-populated with the section outline and compliance checklist before they are distributed to the authors. Another important outcome of storyboarding is gaining an understanding of the customer. Authors should work with the capture team to gain an understanding of who will likely read each section of the proposal. As a group, the proposal team should consider the following questions. Who is the customer? What is important to them? What are their major hot buttons? What is their mission? What problems do they anticipate? Have they had any problems on the current contract? What are they worried about on the upcoming procurement? Taking time to understand the motivations of the customer will help the team to develop solutions that are tailored to the issues that the customer cares about. In addition, identifying hot buttons during the storyboarding phase, that is, before writing begins, enables the team to develop approaches that directly address the customer's concerns and highlight the strengths of the team. This supports stronger content from the beginning, saving time in the end and resulting in higher quality final proposal content. This will also make the proposal content more compelling and customer focused, which will typically translate to higher scoring proposals. Another key outcome of storyboarding is a stronger understanding of your team's position to win. This is especially important when consultant writers are involved. It is important for the team to be honest when considering the team's position and identifying weaknesses. If you don't find a way to compensate or counter the identified weaknesses, your competition will certainly find a way to exploit them. As a part of the brainstorming sessions, the team should consider the following questions. How does the customer feel about us and our solution? Is this a strength or a weakness for us? What are some of the team's other strengths? How can we highlight those strengths in our proposal? What are some of the team's weaknesses? How can we mitigate those weaknesses in our proposal? And are there any past performances or proof points that should be referenced? Identifying the team's strengths and weaknesses will define those areas each writer needs to highlight and stress in their write-up, as well as the weak areas for which they need to compensate. Another important outcome of storyboarding is a greater understanding of the competition. Analyzing the major competitors will help the team identify areas to highlight team strengths that will ghost the weaknesses of the competition. This will also help the team identify areas where the competition may have a leg up so that the team can proactively come up with ways to compensate. As part of the brainstorming sessions, the team should consider the following questions. What are the likely strategies of the competitors? How does the customer feel about them and their likely solution? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And how can we mitigate those strengths and highlight the weaknesses in our proposal? The benefits of the solution tell the customer how the proposed features will be of value and why the features are desirable. Ideally, these features will directly address a customer issue, hot button, or requirement. Creating a features and benefits table for each section helps the writer define the section content, that is, the major features, and the reason why the evaluators should select the team, that is, the customer benefits. Features are concrete offerings. For example, the proposed organization, processes, technology, facilities, capabilities, personnel, etc. Typical benefits to the customer might include the following: on-time delivery, expedited delivery, lower risk, increased effectiveness or efficiency, increased or high reliability, faster turnaround, responsive management, higher maintainability, quick response, seamless transition, and/or lower cost. Wherever possible, you'll want to quantify the benefits and provide relevant metrics. One of the most important outcomes of storyboarding are the section themes. Section themes should resonate with your overall win themes. However, section themes are specific to each section. Section themes should highlight a key feature of the section solution and the benefit that the customer receives from that feature. The purpose of the theme statement is to tell the evaluators why they should choose your team. The section theme statement appears at the beginning of the section, often in unique text, and concisely conveys the key features and benefits to the customer. Theme statements should also incorporate metrics and/or quantifiable benefits where possible. In this example, we have a discriminator. The COTS tool performs all of the required functions listed in the RFP, along with quantified benefits: immediate startup, enhancing user productivity, and lifecycle savings of roughly $300,000 in software development costs. As this example also shows, when it makes sense and doesn't make the theme statement sound too forced, it can be helpful to put the customer and benefits first. We end up with the following customer-focused theme statement. Customer A benefits from immediate startup with enhanced productivity and lifecycle savings of roughly $300,000 in software development costs because our COTS tool performs all of the required functions listed in the RFP. Risk is often a key element of the customer's evaluation process. Discussing risk can demonstrate to the evaluator an understanding of the problem. However, risk must be credible and real. One common approach for identifying and documenting risks consists of the following 7 steps. First, identify relevant risks to the customer, working with the program team as necessary. Next, assess whether the risk level is low, medium, or high. Then, prioritize the risks according to their seriousness. Next, determine the causes of the risks not the symptoms. Then, develop risk mitigation techniques, including alternative, backup, or parallel procedures to eliminate or minimize the risk. Then, identify the degree to which these modified risks could affect other areas of the proposal and the technical management solutions. Then, use the information gathered to complete the risk matrix in the storyboard. Finally, at the heart of the storyboard is the identification of key graphics and visuals for each section. Graphics serve to visually break up the text and make the narrative more digestible for the evaluators. If used properly, graphics can help you to more effectively communicate information as well as save space. Graphics are key to effective proposal writing. Research shows that readers recall about 10% of what they read only, whereas they recall nearly 70% of what they both read and see. As part of developing the storyboards, writers should think about the types of graphics that would support each subsection. Graphics consist of visuals such as charts, drawings, maps, photographs, tables, and call-out boxes. At the storyboarding stage, writers can simply provide a rough sketch, a marked up reused graphic, a template for a table, a photograph, or other graphic to support the material to be presented in their section. Writers should provide a title and action caption for each graphic identified. Action captions help the reader understand the meaning of the graphic and serve to sell the approach. Action captions should include a key feature and customer benefit that are highlighted in the graphic. After the storyboard review, graphic artists will typically further develop and create any storyboard graphics that have been approved. When developing graphics, writers should ask themselves a series of questions. What basic point am I trying to make in my section? What am I selling? What are the components of my approach, and what data will support these components? What medium, words or graphics, will best sell my idea? What type of graphic will best express my message? How general or specific should my graphic be? Will a graphic better represent a complex process or complex relationships than words? In deciding the type of graphic to use, the writer should consider what type of information is being depicted and then select the appropriate visual. For example, relationships are best shown using a chart, process is best shown using a flow diagram, relative size is best shown using a pie chart, and precise data is best presented in a table. Additionally, photographs are great for showing actual products, and Gantt charts are great for schedules. On the next few slides, we'll walk through some typical graphics that you might include in your storyboard. On this slide, we see an organization chart. These are great to include in your management storyboards and eventually in a management draft. Organization charts enable you to show the organization visually. You will want to make organization charts simple and uncluttered with reasonable spans of control. Although not shown in this example, it can also be helpful to show lines of communication to the customer in your organization charts. Schedule graphics are also great to include in management storyboards. Schedules with Gantt charts are a great way to show the major activities in relation to the project milestones, including major reviews, decision points, significant events, authorization and approval points, and more. Major dependencies and constraints between schedule elements should also be identified either on the schedule or in the planned supporting text. Process flows are a great way to simplify the presentation of complex technical activities so that they can be more easily understood by the evaluators. Although this is a fairly simple process flow example, process flow charts can easily become much more complex, especially when using a tool such as Visio, but they are especially helpful to show manufacturing, administrative, or service processes. However, as this graphic demonstrates, process flow charts can be used to show other high-level processes as well. Although they can be very helpful to present numbers and related values, tables are not exclusively used to display quantitative information. Whenever you have more than one set of values or information that have a direct relationship, you can use a table to organize the data. For example, In proposals, we frequently use tables to present risks and mitigations, roles and responsibilities, and features and benefits. Although storyboards can be very effective, the problem is that many times they simply are not. They can be difficult to implement, and when we do use them actually, the content is often incomplete. Additionally, many times, the content simply doesn't transfer to the proposal draft. But this is likely because we are approaching storyboarding in the wrong way. One of the biggest mistakes we make in storyboarding is trying to storyboard in silos. How often do we hand our teams a capture plan, an RFP, and blank storyboards, and then ask them to fill them out and turn them in sometime before the storyboard review? If this is how you're using storyboards, you might be using them as a check the box requirement in your proposal or capture process, and you're not taking full advantage of this helpful tool and process. As we discussed in the beginning of this presentation, the real intent of storyboarding is to foster collaborative thinking. This process of visual thinking and planning allows the group to brainstorm together, place ideas on storyboards, and arrange the storyboards on the wall. When used correctly, storyboarding fosters more ideas and generates consensus inside the group. Another mistake we tend to make when storyboarding is trying to generate too many storyboards at too granular of a level. Storyboards work best when they support the big picture, that is, the thread that will be pulled throughout the overall response. For smaller proposals, you're going to want to stick with the major high-level sections. For example, management, technical, and staffing. For larger proposals, storyboarding to the first and second level sections is typically sufficient. Another big mistake we make with storyboarding is forgetting to tailor brainstorming sessions to different personality types. Different people need different environments to cater to how their minds work. Some individuals need independent, quiet time to think through ideas. Other individuals need group dialogue to generate ideas and think out loud, while other individuals are more visual and prefer to draw things out on a whiteboard, for example. To increase the effectiveness of your storyboard development, you'll want to vary your solution development, brainstorming, and storyboarding sessions to cater to different personality types. Additionally, different brainstorming techniques work better for different individuals. Try presenting a variety of different formats, lists, mind maps, free writing, and others, to help different people get their creative juices flowing. Today, I'm going to conclude with some overall tips to increase storyboarding success. Before the storyboarding sessions, authors should review the RFP documents, capture documents, proposal outline and assignments, and storyboard templates. This will allow authors to understand the requirements of their assigned sections, have a baseline knowledge of key customer issues and hot buttons, and start to think about how they might address the different win themes in their sections. I recommend setting aside multiple days for storyboarding, but limiting brainstorming sessions to 30 to 60-minute intervals with several breaks. Studies show that our minds lose focus after just 8 to 12 seconds, so this strategy will help to keep the meetings productive and effective. Remember to vary your solution development, brainstorming, and storyboarding sessions to cater to different personality types. Include quiet time for individuals who need to think through ideas independently, structured group dialogue for those individuals who prefer to generate ideas and to think out loud, and hands-on whiteboarding strategies for individuals who are more visual and/or tactile and prefer to draw things out. Because the storyboards are developed collaboratively, you should have consistent messaging across the storyboards. But make sure you provide plenty of opportunities for each of the writers to review the other storyboards, just to make sure. Make current versions of storyboards available on the War Room wall, if you have one, and within the proposal collaboration workspace. Writers should be encouraged to provide comments and feedback to one another to help improve the messaging and ensure that the story is consistent and cohesive throughout each of the sections. The proposal manager and capture manager should do the same. After storyboard drafts are complete and reviewed by the internal team, make time for a formal storyboard review. Have all major internal stakeholders review the storyboards and provide comments. If necessary, have a second storyboard review before moving forward with proposal draft development. When these formal storyboard reviews are conducted, you save time later in the process because you gain stakeholder buy-in before any time is wasted writing the first draft. And perhaps the most important tip, make sure you transfer the storyboard content to the proposal draft templates. When I manage proposals, I like to transfer the theme statements, feature and benefit tables, and graphic placeholders to the section templates or the shell documents for each of my authors. It can be helpful to include key messaging elements as bullet points for the author to weave in throughout the narrative as well. This step of transferring the content to the proposal draft is so frequently missed, and without it, all that time spent storyboarding simply goes to waste. Remember, storyboarding is a critical planning process that increases proposal writing efficiency by helping writers understand the task, brainstorm, and then map and or plan their writing before beginning the first draft. To increase storyboarding success, make sure to storyboard as a collaborative effort, focus your storyboards on the high-level sections, vary your solution sessions and brainstorming activities to support different personality types, make time for both formal and informal storyboard reviews, and ensure you transfer the information from the storyboards to the proposal draft templates. When implemented correctly, storyboarding improves the cohesiveness of the proposal strategy and streamlines proposal draft development. This upfront planning process can definitely save you time and effort in the end. All right, that's all I have for this morning, Bhaskar.
Thank you, Ashley. That was fluent. Actually, I've got a few questions, and I'll just leave the attendees to drop their key takeaways and also key questions as I progress with my questions. Please do drop a line. What did you learn from today? That's one thing that you would like to take away and try to implement at your place, whether you're a bid consultant, whether you're an employee, or you're a director of a company. Please do share in the talk. In the meantime, let me share some questions that we can go for. Ashley, who should be part of storyboarding sessions?
Oh, that's a great question. So ideally, you have your capture manager, your proposal manager, your subject matter experts that have the information that you need, and then the writers. And I like for cross collaboration, so it doesn't necessarily just have to be the writers for that section, but if you are crunched for time, you can focus your sessions to just those who are writing the section.
Got it. And you did advise that it's preferable to do the storyboarding session before we receive the RFP, Ashley. So because it's recommended for must-win or strategic bids, would you suggest to do 2 storyboarding sessions before RFP and after RFP?
Yeah, so it depends how much time that you have, right? And how much has changed between your assumptions before the RFP and what came out in the final RFP. So if there's been a lot of changes and your strategy is different or your approach is going to be different, it may be helpful to have a second storyboarding session. But if not much has changed, you can probably just move forward with first draft development. So I guess it depends on how much time you have and how much change has happened based on your initial knowledge and then your final knowledge of what's in the RFP.
Got it. And kickoff meetings and storyboarding sessions. Can we include storyboarding session? Because obviously people are busy. From your experience, can we include storyboarding, say 3 hours, part of an all-day kickoff meeting? What's the pros and cons of that?
So I prefer shorter kickoff meetings, and I like to keep my storyboarding sessions focused on those who need to know the content of that section. And kickoff meetings often include some high-level executives and individuals who may not need to participate in those sessions. So there's pros and cons to that, absolutely. I prefer, a shorter kickoff and then smaller storyboarding sessions instead. As I mentioned in my presentation, we don't have, as human beings, a lot of focus. And so trying to get people to be thinking and productive for a full all-day kickoff can be difficult. So it may be a better use of people's time to break that up over a couple days.
Got it. In good old days, Ashley, we used to sit down next to each other, flip charts, post-it notes, a lot of brainstorming, and we come out with proper storyboarding. How do we apply the same principles in the virtual world? Is there any kind of things that we need to adapt, or the principles that you suggested will also work in the virtual domain as well?
Yes, so absolutely. There are so many tools now, Microsoft Teams and screen sharing. You can either use some of the built-in whiteboarding tools, or you can just use a simple PowerPoint deck and draw out things on the PowerPoint deck. You can have, the structured storyboard on the screen and kind of putting content together with your team. So just whatever tools you have available to you, there's all sorts of tools you probably have available through almost everyone uses, the Microsoft packages. Google, if you're using Google Suite, has tons of collaborative tools as well. And then if you're not using any of those, Zoom, your free Zoom tools to share. There's all sorts of options out there for collaboration now in the virtual world.
Perfect, Ashley. Ashley, what do you think is the absolute minimum output that we need to get from a storyboarding session? And what do you think should be the ideal outcome from a storyboarding session?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So first and foremost, that understanding of the customer, right? That's really what you're trying to get out of the storyboarding, because those writers and authors don't have that information. And you oftentimes need to get that out of the heads of your capture manager, of your SMEs who might be on site with the customer. So that's really critical, because without that customer understanding, you're going to have a very generic proposal. So if I had to pick one thing as the outcome of the storyboard, it's that customer understanding. And then if you have time, then tailoring that solution to the customer during those sessions is kind of the next thing, right? So identifying the features and benefits of that solution, turning that into your win theme, and then being able to translate that into the proposal.
Thanks. Ashley, who should ideally own the storyboarding session?
That's, it depends on the strength level of your team. So oftentimes, as a proposal manager or a capture manager, I'll drive the storyboarding solution sessions. If you have very strong section leads or section writers, they can drive the solution sessions themselves. So, it just depends on how comfortable the team is with storyboarding, but definitely you want someone who can facilitate the conversation, drive the conversation, help the team to get back on track if, they start going down a rabbit hole. And then you also want, someone who can document what the team is coming up with, right? So if that's not the person facilitating, having some sort of scribe or talented person capturing all of the information that's gathered during the session can be very helpful. And then if you don't really have that capability real time, and you find you're not capturing those notes very well, try recording the sessions and going back to document them that way.
Perfect, Ashley. Ashley, inside storyboarding session, we do brainstorming. So Edith just asks, could you please share your experience on how to perform the brainstorming sessions? It can be heated up pretty quickly, and you might get answers that you really don't want to hear. How do you, any experiences of brainstorming within storyboarding?
Yeah, so I kind of like to call it structured brainstorming. So I come up with targeted questions that I want to ask the team. And I provided a few examples, in the lecture today, but, come up with those questions beforehand. And then if teams are going off topic, start asking those other questions to drive the conversation to where you want it to be. And if they get stuck, try asking questions in different ways or digging at different parts of the solution, because eventually something's going to spark. Sometimes, I'll throw a graphic up on the screen and say, hey, how do you feel about this graphic? What's right and wrong about it? And that can help drive discussion, because maybe your people on the call are more visual, right? And so just try different strategies to get at what makes them start thinking about what you need them to think about.
Got it, Ashley. And Edith, I hope the answer was helpful. If there is any follow-up questions, please do drop it. Again, in a Carla, following up with that question, obviously there will be people with multiple personality types, and you might get answers from the same individual all the time, whether there'll be absolute silence from the others. Again, on the softer side, Ashley, I know on the technical side, we can get all the information from the customer. What's the best way of identifying when and how to involve oneself, or how to encourage participation from everybody, from your experience?
Yeah, so if you have someone who's like continually providing all the answers and not letting everyone speak, have a session without that person and try smaller group sessions, right? Because maybe the people who aren't speaking up need a smaller group session to contribute, right? So that's why, trying to do it in those big kickoff meetings with everybody, you're not going to be able to control that sort of situation. That's another reason why keeping the session short can be helpful. That way you can redirect your strategy and set up maybe the follow-in ones, a few smaller group sessions for the teams, so that you can get more inputs from individuals. And then, send them off on their own sometimes, right? Say, give them homework, come back tomorrow, document these things, and we'll discuss those, or you can send them ahead of time if you don't want to share them out loud.
That's brilliant, Ashley. And Ashley, in certain cases, we collect all this information, but what's the best format of sharing this information after we had the storyboarding session?
Yeah, so, I like the storyboard structure. I think it's a very helpful way to present the information, and you can keep that in your collaboration portal. But, the most important part of the storyboarding is getting that information into your draft sections, right? So if you're at a point where you're going to start some draft development, putting that content straight into the template that the author is going to use to start developing the draft is another useful way. So I like both methods, and it depends on how much time you have, really, whether you're going to just start in the draft template or in a storyboard template.
That's great, Ashley. Again, Ashley, it's an open forum. Again, feel free to ask any questions to the attendees for the next 5 minutes or so. Again, Mano was asking the question, what are the common pitfalls which makes the storyboarding sessions ineffective?
Yeah, well, so I think the biggest pitfall, right, is not trying to collaborate with the storyboarding and trying to have your authors just do it all by themselves. And if you have, a very introverted author, they may not proactively go and talk to the subject matter experts. They may just try to read what they can and use the information available that way. So kind of, forcing the collaboration a little bit for some of the authors can be helpful. Try to make it more comfortable for those more introverted participants. Have smaller group sessions, but also allow some time for, those people that have to talk through things to get their ideas and thoughts understood. That's how some people really, create the best ideas, right? Is that thinking out loud sort of process, but that can overwhelm other people. So, mixing up your strategy sessions, having some quiet time, reflecting after the sessions, and those homework assignments. So, and then, as I mentioned, getting that information into the draft. So just make sure you're not skipping that step. That's another kind of pitfall as well. And if there are other ones you've experienced, let me know. And I can let you know if I've run into those and how I kind of try to overcome those issues. Am I still connected? It got very quiet.
Right.
Okay.
Any last questions to Ashley before we open our quiz? And please do share your takeaways. I'll pick up some of the best takeaways, and I might even give you some presents. It's Christmas time, so let's just do that. So thank you, Ashley. Ashley, I mean, like, if there is, because ideally everybody has a large team, but in certain cases, if it's a small bid, Ashley, and there is only a proposal manager with just a managing director who's a subject matter experts and stuff, how will it work for a smaller bid and also for smaller teams, Ashley? Is there anything that there's like a one-shot summary that we could give them to take away?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's always a challenge, right? So I would just say try to execute as well as you can with the resources you have available. So for smaller teams, I see a lot of, internet researching to find out about the customer and the issues and using material from the RFP to get the underlying issues and concerns that the customer is expressing in terms of, if they mention risk a lot, they're probably very risk averse and those types of things. But I, still take the time to go through this exercise, talk to the available individuals that you have within the organization to get their insights and collaborate. But yeah, it's a little bit more difficult for sure when you don't have access to SMEs or individuals that have that customer relationship.
Got it, Ashley. And do you suggest, because normally what happens is, when you are looking at a renewal type of a project, you do have previous submissions, you do know that you might have won in the past or lost in the past. How do you then incorporate that information inside your storyboarding session?
Well, certainly if it's the same customer and you're making kind of the same mistakes every time, you can absolutely use those to drive your strategy and make sure you're not making those same mistakes. And then also in terms of, if you're noticing compliance issues, right? You might make sure that you pay a lot of attention to the outlining piece and making sure that and really the second part is more the draft development phase, but that your content that you're developing is responsive to what they're asking for. So making sure that you're providing, enough of the how and not, just repeating back the requirements to them. So those are absolutely helpful in making sure, you're understanding customers if they're the same customers, and then kind of how you're approaching your proposal process as well.
Thank you, Ashley. So there are some few good takeaways coming in. Carla just typed the same question twice. I'm not sure. So I think it's, we tried it, but let me reread it again just in case.
Sure.
So, when recognizing personality types, can you expound a little bit more on that perspective? How to identify when and how much to involve oneself in?
Okay. So, it's kind of reading the room a little bit, right? So if you find yourself kind of stuck and the team isn't participating, try something else to get more people involved. And so, that's where I might throw up a table and, have some pointed questions, like if there's a process. So break down the process. Maybe there's 6 steps to the process. And then your middle column is, where are there issues in this process? Where does this break down for the customer in your middle column? And then your column on the right, how can we fix it? How can we make this better for our customer? So that's one way you can kind of break things down and try to get more involvement. I've found that very effective. I've also taken a look at, a graphic idea from a previous proposal and thrown that up and said, how does this work for this customer? Is this right? What's missing? What would we need to add? How would we adjust it? And that gets, sometimes people talking, right? Because some people are process oriented, Some people are visual and they need to see something to get their thoughts going. And then other times, you know, if no one's really being active, maybe people aren't comfortable speaking up in a group. So you might, you know, give them that table activity and have them go off on their own and complete it. And then send those thoughts to you and then come together as a group and talk through the answers and see if you can get the group to come to a consensus of the best way to approach some of those challenges. So just finding a way to make sure that you're getting some feedback from the team. You might send them off to do homework and then find out that they're not doing it, right? So then maybe you have to give them homework in person. So you have them sit on a call, put on some music and have them do the exercise, right? So you just have to kind of do what, and if you're before your RFP hits, you have time to try different strategies, right? If your RFP is already dropped and you're trying to do it, you may just have to do some abbreviated solutioning and then move forward. So that's why we encourage so much for you to try to get this done before you have a live RFP.
Got it. I think the underlying message here is actually, I mean, like, looks like there is no one way of working. You just need to try out a few times, try different storyboarding sessions for different bits, see what it works with your organization, what works within your company, and then come out with some standard way of working, isn't it, Ashley?
Absolutely. And you might not be working with the same group of people every time, but if you are, you're lucky because then you can figure out what works best for them. So that's really the key. Don't try to do something if it's not working. You know, if you're trying to storyboard and none of the solutions work, then it's just, that's not working for the team. And maybe they just need to start writing. And once they start writing, the solutions will come that way. But don't try to force it. So try a few different ways. If it's really not working with your team, then don't waste your time spinning your wheels too much, right?
Got it, Ashley. I think the way I see that is in every geography, I think the maturity of different geographies is not improving. In the case of US, I think the storyboarding is an established concept, but it's just the type of organization they need to adapt to it. But in certain geographies, storyboarding is a brand new concept. You know, people just take a tender, they just look at the proposal, what they need to fill up, they fill the template, they submit, and they move on. So for them, this itself is a new concept for them to let alone digest this information, introduce this part of their overall process. If they are able to do that, that's what success is. But thank you for joining and thank you for sharing. So what I'll share that is, last few questions from my side, as you always do. What we recently found out was, I'll do a short poll. Again, this is anonymized poll because this will officially go live Monday, and you will know why. The poll, as you know, is titled, "Will you stay or will you move?" Because we are looking at New Year. So I'm going to launch the poll. It's totally anonymized. I just want to get a feel for it because we'll be rolling it out over to 6,000 people in the next 5 to 6 weeks before Christmas to just get a feel for, is this the great resignation, which is the trend that people are talking about for the past 1 year? Is it an American thing? Because we're also finding it in UK and in Europe. It happens in India as well, but I just want to get a feel for it to just see. So it's a very simple question. Will you stay or will you move? And it's totally anonymized and I'm launching. Bingo. Just see. I hope you can see the poll. So some of you could be big consultants, which means you are staying and moving is the same because it's their own thing. But the trend goes like close to 20 to 25% of the people are looking to move. And we just want to have a look, is that true in the bid and proposal industry that many people are moving? Because on one end, there is a huge talent shortage. And on the other end, people are looking to move. So there will be a much wider poll, which I'll circulate as part of this. The recordings and the slides with that link to it will be available. And also part of Thanksgiving, there are other things that we're also giving. So let me open the quiz now. This is always for the people who stay longer. So last few minutes and be ready. Let's see who's the quickest, and whoever gets the answer first, you can choose between our 30 odd courses in certification, APMP certifications, or Jumpstart workshop, micro certification, and some new competitive intelligence certification that we're launching next month as well. So you can pick and choose anything. So let me open question number 1. When Ashley was talking about the origin of storyboard, she showed a picture. What picture was that? Mickey, correct, Carla. Well done. So Carla, that's it. See, it's not that hard, is it? But end of the day, we all need to have fun. So, second question. This could be a very simple one. So, in a quick turn proposal, Ashley mentioned a certain amount of days recommended for storyboarding. How many days did Ashley recommend it for quick turn proposals? Quick turn is like close to 30 days. I think Sophia nailed it. Sophia, well done. It's 2 days. Yes, Ashley, that's right, right?
Yeah, for 30 days. Yes. And to be clear, in the US, that's pretty standard. Quick turn would be more like 15 or fewer.
Got it. So for a 30-day turnaround, at least spend 2 days. That's massive. That's super important. I mean, like that's wow, that's great. And for a 1 week turnaround, or for a 8 to 12 months turnaround, Ashley, will you do that twice, or will you just do an extended 3-4 days?
Oh, for the story for a longer period? Yeah, you might take a couple weeks to storyboard.
Wow, 2 weeks of storyboarding. These are all brand new for me, believe me. I've been bidding for like how long? 18 years now. So, spending this time, we normally fudge all these things in a kickoff meeting, and then try to get everybody in and try to get this out. But it's fascinating. Thank you, Ashley. So the last question, let's see who's going to take it. Ashley mentioned there is a reason why you need to include graphics, because there is a percentage that you mentioned people will recall when you read and when you show. What was that percentage? Who's going to have a go at that? This is the last question, by the way. Anybody? No? Sophia, that's not the answer. So you could try again quickly, because nobody is trying. Go for the second attempt, Sophia. Vikrant, come on, that's not the answer. Quick, who's going for it? Oh no, it's okay, I'll give a tip. It's above 50, but it's not 80. Yes, Manu, that's the answer. It's 70. So yes, the first question goes to Carla, second question goes to Sophia, and the third question goes to Manu. Guys, you'll be tomorrow you'll be getting a standard response from Zoom saying, hey, thank you for this, thank you for attending. Slides and recording will be shared. 100% slides and recording will be shared within the next 48 hours. And separately, we'll reach out to the 3 people to just understand what you want to do with us. You can pick and choose any course. So next week, it will be me speaking about metrics, because I just thought of Howard Nutt, and I thought we haven't done metrics for a while, and I thought I just need to bring him back. So next week I'll be sharing what I learned from Howard Nutt on sales operations metrics, because there will be lots of restructuring that companies will be doing, or they are doing already, how to restructure the company, smaller company, bigger company, hybrid teams, centralized teams, so on. So I'll be sharing some of those insights. It could be top end. But I believe everybody here will be a leader, or are already a leader in your company, and it's important for you to see what's the structure that you need to have in place, some of the trends, challenges, etc. But that's it. Next week it will be me. Let's see how many will turn up, but please do. I'm so used to talking with myself, but that's fine. But wish you all the success, guys. Thanks for joining on a Friday. Apologies, I need to move it. Thanks you, Ashley, for sharing all your wisdom. So thank you, guys. Look after yourself, guys and girls, and I will see you next week in a new webinar. Speak to you soon. Take good care. Bye. Have a good weekend all.